Hello, welcome back to TNC. So today we are doing something a little bit special. We're going to be doing a technical guide to Excel budgeting. So doing your monthly budget in a spreadsheet. Honestly, you don't need an app. An app is good, it's useful, but at the end of the day, spreadsheet is really flexible, versatile. It gives you all the analytical insights that you need that you cannot get from an app. So at the same time, it's really easy and it's not very time consuming. So I don't know about y'all, but like I'm really bored. I miss human interaction. So the only thing that I have right now going for me is interacting with Excel. It's my best friend. It's my only friend. Which is kind of tragic, but all kidding aside, Excel really is your best friend when it comes to budgeting. So without further ado, let's get into it. Before we start, make sure you like this video if you've been enjoying the content I've been putting out recently, as well as subscribe to the channel if you want more future content related to not just budgeting and personal finance, but also investments and travel and credit card strategies. And definitely check out two videos. One is my March budget. Whatever tutorial I'm going to show you, a guide to Excel budgeting, is the main engine behind how I came to the analytics in my own March budget video. So make sure you check that out. And the other video that I want to point you towards is the video that I did on the 5 things that you should be doing with the first sum of money, be it the stimulus payment or your first salary. In fact, the most important thing I think in there is to cut your costs, cut your spending. And there's honestly no better way of doing it than following my Excel guide and knowing how to do budgeting in Spreadsheet. Okay, now let's get down to business. First, open your Excel, and what we need to do is set up a input tab. So I'm going to call this spending data. The central idea behind building a model. So this whole thing that we're going to be building is essentially a very simple model in Excel. So basically with a model, it's 3 steps: input, calculation, and output, right? So a good model, you only have to hard code in the input factors, which is every month when you put in your line by line, transaction by transaction spending data, that's the only thing that you should be putting into your model. If the model is built right, if the infrastructure is laid out properly, then everything should follow, and then the output should be generated without you needing to touch anything else in between. I also want to point out a couple of functions and formulas that we will be using in this video. So the whole point of this video is also kind of like an intro Excel guide, getting to know what is an array, what is nesting, cell locking, and then in terms of the formulas, we're doing sum if, or if error, VLOOKUP, min, and max. So honestly, very simple, nothing too complex. So let's get into it. First, we need to have the input, right? And like I said, the input in this case is the spending data. So create a tab in Excel that's called spending data. So here I kind of cheated a little bit because I took the data from last month as well as this month in April, which is not done yet. As you can tell, there's still gaps below. But basically, you want descriptions, right? So not just the amount. So for me here, I have the amount that I've spent per line transaction, the category. So these are pretty broad categories that I have defined for myself. Things like food, transport, health, shopping, entertainment, bills, business, and those are my main categories. You can choose to slice and dice it any other way. It's up to you. For me, I also have this thing called a subcategory where I break down each category into smaller bits. So for example, food into lunch, dinner, bubble tea, coffee, snacks, and breakfast. I will break transport into public transport and taxis. I will break, for example, shopping into apparel and non-apparel. I guess to provide a more granular picture of my spending. The next column reads card. You don't need this. I only use this to track my credit card. So the last 3 columns are very, very important. As I've highlighted here, please, you have to do these three columns. The first column is gonna be called month. The second column is date, and the third column is gonna be let's call it month date. The reason why we need this three is because they will make your calculations a lot easier and simplify the formula. I know it's a little bit silly, but so that means slightly more work when you're putting in the raw data when you're tracking. Start with the month, just the 3-letter abbreviation of the month. And then you have the date, which is the day number that you incurred the cost on, and then input it this way. So if you just put, say, 3/1, Excel automatically formats it. Okay, great. So now that we've done this, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna highlight this entire thing. So how do you highlight this entire thing? Press Shift Control Right. So it highlights all the way to column G, and then while holding Shift and Control, press down, and that highlights to the end of your current manual entry. But I want more. I want all the way. So press down one more time, and then it goes to like a row million, okay? So now, holding this, click this input place. It's called name box. Now I'm going to name this. So the whole array is called spend. Now, doing the same thing, clicking on just the amount, okay? Shift Control down again. I'm gonna call this amount, okay? Now let's build something called the month chart. So type Jan and then just drag it. Look, Excel just does it for you. So this is called month. And then I want to input, so hard code into this and never do it again. The last day of the month, 1/31. Excel just does it for you automatically. And then the other thing, the third column, I'm gonna call this max days in month. And now I'm gonna call this array month chart. Now, this is the input page. We're now gonna do the control panel, which is the calculations plus the output, okay? So make sure that these two stay apart. Now, the first thing that I want to do is build the analytics page. Okay. So first, I want to know what's the total spend, right? And then the second thing I want to know is total food. And then underneath that, I want total Okay, now great. Let's start by doing data validation, which is to create a drop list of months in this box that I've just highlighted. So what we need to do is first go to data, okay? Click data validation, click here, click allow list, and then the source, go to spending data, it's all here, okay? Now press enter, okay, here you go. Here's a list. So let's start with April. So we have to use the sum if, okay? Sum if formula. So equals to sum if. What's going to happen here is the range. Look at Excel is prompting you. So always follow what the Excel prompts you. What is the range? The range is the range of criteria to choose from, not the range that you're summing. So the sum range is behind. So what is the range that you're trying to choose from? The range that you're trying to choose from is the month array that we just named, right? So So the spend month array, press tab. Okay, now what is the criteria? The criteria is going to be whatever you're going to show here, and this will change depending on the month that you're in, right? So click this but lock it. So press F4 if you're on Windows. It locks it, so it cannot change, it cannot move, even if you drag this formula. Okay, now the sum range would be the amount, because I saved it as amount. Do you see that? Now, if I change to March, this number changes, which is exactly what we want. Now, the total food, here you need to start selecting. So this is what column A is. For column A, it will be the identifiers. So I'm gonna put food, dinner. So these are what I've labeled my subcategories as. In this case, we need to use some ifs, so multiple conditions. Now, it's different now because now the sum range is in front. What is the range that we want? We want the amount range, the amount array, okay? And then after that, the criteria range to be first, okay? It needs to be within the month selected, which is April. So it should be month, spend month. And then the criteria should be whatever the month is selected here, lock it. The second criteria needs to be category, right? And then the category needs to be whatever's here, lock. Only column A. So lock A, leave 6 free because you want to drag it down, right? Okay, now good. Now this generates to you the amount of money that you spend on food. Now for average, it's the same logic for average per instance. So I want to find out what I'm spending on lunch every time I incur a transaction that's tagged with lunch. I go to average if. Okay, now let's move on to number of days in a month. Great. So let's start with current date, max days in month, days elapsed, and days left. Okay, so the current date should be whatever's the last possible entry in this whole array, right? Whatever's the last possible entry here. So very simply, we're going to use the max function. The max function would be finding whatever's in that entire column. That's called spend month date, right? So we're going to choose this. This is an Excel formatting for dates, months, and year. You now need to change this to a short date format. The max number of days in a month, we are going to do a VLOOKUP of the table that we built just now. So if you look at this table, we've already built it and it's in the third column, right? Okay, good. So now we're going to look up this. We're going to look up whatever month we have chosen. Remember to lock it. What's the table array's name? It should be month chart. And then it's the third column. And then the match should be exact. Right. So in April, 30 days a month. In May, 31. In July, 31. Look, it works, okay? So days elapsed. It's going to be essentially the max minus the days left, both lock. So days left. Now, this is the tricky one. Days left is a little bit tricky. So what we are gonna do, okay, the max, the last day of the month in this column, the second column of the array, of the array month chart, and then use that to minus the current date. So what's going to happen is this is going to be, again, a VLOOKUP of this So lock it. The table array is called month chart. Okay. Column is 2, not 3. Okay. And then it's also an exact match. Now this generates for you the number formatting code for the last day of the month, which should be the 30th. But what we want to do is use this to minus the current date and then lock this. Now, this now shows you a really weird thing, but we want to convert it to a number and then reduce it to no decimal places. There you go. 9 days left because now 21 days have passed in April, so there are 9 days left. Now, this works if we are in a current month in which the current transaction has been incurred in. Say if we move to March, this goes haywire. We go to May, this goes to haywire. So what we need to do is put some conditions here. So if you notice, if we go to a month preceding April, this will go negative. If we go to the month after April, this will become larger than the maximum number of days in April, right? So we're going to use the ifs function because there are multiple conditions and values upon those conditions, right? So let's say if the number of days left is less than 0, then I want to return 0. If the number of days left is more than the maximum number of days, okay, then I want to return the maximum number of days in that month. Now, the third condition is when it's not 0, but also less than the maximum number of days in a month. So we use the and function, okay? We use the and function. So when more than 0, and then when this is less than the maximum number of months, oops. Okay, the value in this case would be, let me close this up. You see? Great, now this works. Lovely. Okay, so now we've built the months thing. Great. Okay, so now let's do a little bit projecting. So the whole point of doing this is to project how the total amount will look like at the end of the month when you're somewhere in the middle of the month. Okay, so what we're going to do is, for example, looking at the food category, I'm going to use this, lock it, okay, divide by the number of days elapsed, lock it, okay, times the days elapsed, times the maximum number of days in a month, and lock it. So here you get a projected the total amount at the end of the month. Okay, so I'm going to unlock this and just lock the column because I want to drag this down. Say to 20. So this helps you track using a linear projection, of course, of certain component parts. Your total amount of spending at the end of the month. So I find that very useful. Now, the final component would be to do a daily tracking average. So how do you do this? First, we use a min function. This returns the lower number. We're doing this because in some months, there isn't a 29th, 30th, or 31st, right? So we choose whatever number that is the smaller one. lock it, but only the column. And then the second number we're choosing is a maximum number of days in a month here. So here we lock both, okay? Now, drag this down. Look, magical, right? So the last two numbers get tapered off at 30 because April there's only 30 days. If we go to February, the last three numbers get tapered off at 29. So we're gonna hide this column, as we will hide this column, make everything look neat, okay? We're gonna call this the month to date average because this will measure the daily average from the first day till whichever day you're calculating. Okay. Some ifs. Okay. The sum range will be amount as usual. First, we want to limit it to just April. So spend month will be whatever this is, lock it. The second thing is the spend date, right? Will be whatever this is, lock column, yeah. Well, the month to date average should be the average of this cell to this cell, right? So if it's the first day, it should just be this. Now, but we want to lock one of the L3s so that every time you drag it down, the L3 stays, right? So here is L3 to L4, L3 to L5. So the month to date average is just the average of however many days there have been at that point. Look, the last 2 days, there wasn't any change in the number of days, right? It's 30 and 30, but this changed. That means we need to use the if function. Now, if this equals to the thing above, now we can lock the K column. We will take this value. If not, this. Now, if you drag it down, nothing changed except for the last two columns. Now, this takes the previous value because these two numbers are equal to each other. Do you see that? Okay, great. Now, the daily average is very simple. It is the total spend divided by the max number of days in a month. So lock both, and then you just drag it down. And what you do is highlight these three, go to insert, so the graphs are here, go to a combo graph, and then you change this by going into right click, change chart type, go to change the month to date average to also a line. Voila, this is it. The reason why I find the daily average useful is because I can gauge the number of days where I've hit above the average. And the MTD daily gives me a sense of distribution of spending across the month. Great. Now, the only other thing remaining is then to generate the spending pie chart. So, to insert same place, I like to use a donut. So the great thing about this model is you can change in between the months and everything changes accordingly, automatically. The only thing you need to do in this case then is to just input the data in this sheet. That's it. Wow, that was longish video, but I hope everybody learned something. I hope this was helpful and educational. If you enjoyed the contents of this video, please hit the like button and click subscribe because I'll be putting out other Excel tutorials in the future. But for now, thank you very much. Thanks for tuning to TNC and see ya.